But we're starting this brand new series entitled Our Father in Heaven. And how many of you have ever heard of the Lord's Prayer? Whether you've been in church ever before, once in your life, or never in your life, you've probably heard of the Lord's Prayer. Most people have heard this. I remember as just a child, my great-grandmother, when I would spend the summers with her, and we'd go to sleep. All of us great-grandkids and cousins and stuff, we'd all pile up in Granny's bed, and she would teach us Scripture. And this is one of the very things that my great-grandmother taught me, was the Lord's Prayer, probably 8 years old. And then it was the 23rd Psalm. And it was just scriptures that she would teach us. But I want to ask you this question. Have you ever been around someone else who you felt was closer to God than you? You've watched them pray and you're like, man, they have got a direct line to God. I wish I could pray like they pray. Man, I listen to them and you're like, man, wow, they're just close to God. And you're like, I wish I could pray like that, but I'm too timid to talk to God, or I don't feel like he hears me, or he doesn't listen to me like he does them. The fact is you're not alone. The disciples felt the very same way. The thing is that they were brought up in a Jewish culture. They were brought up where most of them had to memorize the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, at a very young age. And they were told certain prayers to pray, and they would have to do that. And so they grew up in a very spiritual culture and taught to connect with God. Yet when Jesus was praying, they thought, that's what I want. And so this is our theme verse for this series, and it's found in Luke chapter 11, verse 1. And it says, one day when Jesus was praying in a certain place, when he finished, one of his disciples said to him, Lord, teach us to pray. And that's what I want us to ask the Lord over the next several weeks is, Lord, teach us to pray. You see, they saw something different. Even though they were brought up, Jesus was different in his prayer life. And they're saying, listen, I want what you have. Just as you've just admitted a minute ago that you've seen people, you thought, oh man, they're so close to God. You wanted what they have. The disciples said the same thing. And so Jesus begins to teach them to pray. They were noticing that Jesus had something special. There was something powerful. There was something exciting. There was something intriguing in him. There was a study done a few years ago asking among Christians, and it was 83% of them wanted to know how to know and connect with God more and grow their relationship with him. 83% wanted to know, how do I connect with God and grow in that relationship? And that's our whole this series is all about, and that's what our church is all about. Our mission statement is to see people grow in their relationship with Jesus from one stage to the next. That's who we're all about. And that's what I want to see accomplished during this time of fasting and prayers, that you would become closer to God. You would become open to him. You will hear him more clearly than ever before. And that's what Daniel, when he fasted and prayed, it was 21 days that he prayed. And the angel came and said, Lord, heard you on the very first day, but we've been in a battle fighting to bring the answer. But Daniel continued to pray day in, day out. Even though the Lord hears you on the first day, there's oftentimes a spiritual battle that's taking place. And that's where, when you incorporate fasting, it truly can begin to break things that's going on in the spiritual realm that we do not see. We sang a song earlier, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. He's working all around, and there's a spiritual battle that's taking place all around you, and our prayers help facilitate that and what God wants to do in our lives. If there's ever time we needed to be closer to God, it's now. It's now as a church. I want to bring us together that we will pray and seek God. And so I want to take the next few moments and talk about some things that may be in our lives, that our prayer lives that's missing, and that's why we're not praying the way that Jesus was praying. You see, every morning, most of us, we're just going to do a blanket response here, probably start out our day the same way, and it's in front of the mirror. Hopefully you get in front of the mirror and fix your hair before you walk out the door. You brush your teeth in front of the mirror. Maybe you adore yourself in the mirror for a little bit. Whatever it is that you choose to do, we typically get up in the morning and we look in the mirror. Maybe we're looking like, man, I got them bags under my eyes. I didn't sleep good last night. Or you look in the mirror and think, oh, man, I'm aging. That's not really what I want to talk about. What I'm talking about is we look in the mirror every day and we're like, okay, you got this. Yes, it's another day of work. It's another day of this, but you got this. What we're doing is we're focusing on who's in that mirror looking back at us. is what we typically do. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, we realize, you know what, I can't do it in myself and I need to turn to God. And so I'm going to look to Him and I'm going to ask Him to help me and to be with me. And that's the difference in our prayer life, is that most of the times we only go to God when there's a problem. If we're going to be honest, during our prayer times in our prayer life, we bounce back and forth between the two. Have you ever done that? I've done that. You've been praying and you start talking to God and you're like, okay, I'm not going to even talk to you about that because I can fix that. But this over here, God, I need your help. And we just kind of go back and forth. Or you think, oh, hey, wait, yeah, I can do that. Never mind, God, I'll work on this and you just work on that. We just kind of bounce back and forth between the two. Feel like, well, I can handle it. Where I have the means and I'm going to do whatever it takes to take care of myself. And all else fails, God, I'll come to you and I'll ask you to handle it. A need or crisis will send us to Jesus. It's like automatic. When tragedy happens, boom, everybody turns to God. Even non-believers. Something bad happens. Hey, will you pray for me? Hey, God, help me. Oh, if you just do this for me, I will live for you. I'll go to church. I'll do whatever. Why is it that when we get bad news from the doctor, we turn to God, but if we get a promotion at work or a raise or anything good happens, we don't give Him any credit when He probably played a big role in it? Most of us don't have a relationship with God outside of our problems. Ouch. We don't communicate with Him unless there's something bad going on. So there's something missing in my relationship with God. And so here's some things that I just jotted down. I was going to put them in your notes, but if you want to follow along, you can with those. But something is missing in my relationship when I feel ashamed. When we feel ashamed, it's difficult to have a relationship because we're like, oh, well, I'm not worthy. I'm not this. And so I feel ashamed, so we don't have a relationship. The next one is that I feel obligated. Have you ever felt obligated? When it's something you feel obligated to do, it's very difficult to have a relationship. The relationship with God is difficult when you don't know what to say. And maybe that's what the disciples saw. We don't know what to say. We don't definitely say what you're saying, Jesus. That just sounds way better than what we say. We were taught just to recite this. And, it was ritualistic. It was our tradition. The relationship is difficult when I don't think He's listening. It's hard to have a relationship with someone when you don't think they listen. Spouses are hitting your husbands right now, aren't you? Or hitting your wives. You don't listen to me. That's true. In our relationships, it's hard if we don't think somebody's listening. It's hard to have a relationship. It's difficult when I don't want to bother Him. I feel like I'm being a bother and that my problems are just small and He's got way too many other things to worry about than my little problems. Oftentimes we don't come to God because we feel that way. Oh, we're bothering Him. Some of them is, and this is a big one, it's difficult because I don't trust Him. You feel like God's going to fail you. You feel like God's not going to answer and hear you and do what He says. And the last one is that when you don't get an answer. It's difficult when those things in our lives that we don't have a relationship with Him because of some of those things. We feel ashamed. We feel like He's not going to answer. We feel like we're bothering Him, or we feel like that we can't trust Him anymore because maybe He's seemingly failed you in the past, but He really didn't. All of us, myself included, are dealing with some of these things in our prayer life where something is missing and we want to do better. We want to be impactful. We want to make a difference. And the disciples saw this in Jesus and said, Jesus, please teach us to pray the way that you're praying. Because we see something different in you and we want to pray that way. Jesus' prayer life was about the relationship with the Father. A lot of times our prayer life is about being rescued and not about a relationship. We don't come to Jesus again and just say, hey man, how are you doing? Man, I'm so thankful for today. Oh man, look, Jesus, look at how beautiful the sky is. Look at how great today is. Man, today's just going to be a good day because you and me, we got this today. No, we come to Him and we're like, okay, God, listen, look, I just got a few moments. Listen, I need you to, man, my bills are due. My kids are on my nerves. My wife's on my nerves. Man, look, I just, my boat's broke down. I need you to just do all this stuff, okay, God, and I'll hit you up later.